The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, The Beat, featuring the week's roundup and commentary on music news. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, The Beat.
Hey guys, and welcome to Black Hollywood Live's The Beat. This is a very special episode, what I would like to title Stan Wars. One of our producers here, Phil Svitek, you know, with the whole NWA concept and Straight Outta Compton movie coming out, asked the question, who was better, NWA or Public Enemy? And he wanted to do this in a very civilized manner, so what we have done is we have created a debate, the great debate, if you may. Meet my judges, Tiana Hobson.
Hello, everyone.
Courtney Stewart.
What's up, everybody?
And now let's meet the teams. Debating for Public Enemy. Please introduce yourselves.
We got Kevin J. John.
Kevin J. John. That's right, I drop bombs, got it going on. And I will be debating on behalf of one of the world's greatest groups of all time, Public Enemy. And I am blessed to be joined alongside by my confidant and my friend, the one, the only, Philip Svitek.
Svitek. What's their name?
Who's checking? Whatever. Philip, you call me Kevin K. John or KJ John, whatever you call it. So I could butcher yours.
Clearly, they're good friends.
They're already starting
Best friends
between their group. They're gonna lose.
Mr. Svitek.
And across the table,
Yes.
we have Team NWA. Who do we have?
Yeah, baby. It's Anthony Martin, NWA all day. F the police. What you mean? Here we go.
That's right. And it's me, Joe Braswell. I don't know how this is a debate, actually.
It's
so
not really.
It's not a real
This
debate.
is like a murder.
Yeah, so we... exactly.
Shots fired!
I believe Jesse said this was going to be civil. Now you're bringing in the guns.
All right, so
Thank
let's
you.
get to some of the rules,
It would make
fellas.
sense they were bringing the guns. Look at the group they're following. Just saying. Just
All right,
saying.
the shade, the shade.
Okay.
All right, fellas, calm down. All right, so we have some rules here. We have 4 segments. The beginning will be the basics, telling us why you are a fan. You guys will each have 3 minutes to discuss and prove to us of why that specific group has influenced you so much. We want to see firsthand how these groups have influenced the people in this room. 2, we have the facts. We'll each have 60 seconds to break through albums, tours, social media, merch, and give us some hard numbers. 3 will be the influence. What have these people done in pop culture, political culture, music culture? And then finally, we will have the closing argument in which you will each have 5 minutes. Now, due to there being so many people up at the table, we're going to let you guys cross-examine each other, but you guys will only have you have 2 times each as a team to raise your hand in the middle of the other one's debate and kind of cross-examine them or
Save
challenge
that for
them.
the
if you
closing
may.
argument.
All right? If you wish to do that, just raise your hand and I will choose on you and pause the timer. All right? So let's start with Courtney. Who should we start with?
Let's flip our fake coin. Right or left, Tiana?
It was Public Enemy, definitely.
Oh, all right.
All right,
Public
Team
Enemy, let's
Public
hear it.
Enemy. You have 3 minutes to tell us why you are a fan. I want to hear some personal life experiences, such as
The
first
team
times,
requests
favorites.
a minute and a half warning.
Absolutely. And your time starts now.
I like to interject. Oh, go ahead.
You can't do that.
Go ahead.
All right, and go.
All right. So Rob Patton Sproul made the documentary called Welcome to the Terror Dome, which is obviously about Public Enemy, and I was a protege of Rob Patton Sproul, and so it has that's how I kind of got intertwined in all this. Then he showed me movies like He Got Game, Do the Right Thing, and I started falling in love with Public Enemy. And more I started understanding the message, and all in all, that really is... Public Enemy obviously meant a lot for African Americans, but it also was an avenue to educate white culture into kind of what the black struggle was, and that and that's exactly what it did for me, and it means a lot to me. And you know, down to the symbolism. You know, the clock means something, and I'll get into that. The presentation of their tours, you know, they had mock hangs and everything like that. Everything means something, and even the titles of their band members, you know, Ministry of Information and all these different things. That's what they're about. They're about the message, and the message hit me loud and clear.
Yeah, you know, to piggyback on top of that, and I don't want to be redundant, but here's the thing. I fell in love with Public Enemy circa 1987, 88, Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee film that came out. Who's also a fellow alumnus of my school. And the reason why is because that song that they did for that Fight the Power, obviously that song was something that not just catapulted them to the top, but you got to realize what it was that they were talking about, what their movement was. They were socially aware. They were social activists. They were socially conscious. And they were really about pushing that movement forward through their music. A lot of people, you know, it's kind of like if you want to talk about racism now, a lot of times people try to hide from it, be oblivious to it, but Public Enemy did not. They were willing to go there and say what it was that they had to say in order to empower the black race, in order to unify the black race, and in order to educate the black race. So I think that at the end of the day, what Public Enemy was doing was not only you know, constructive for our community, but they built our community up, and while doing that, we're informing people that were maybe not in the black community, no matter what race they were, and they brought our concerns to a bigger light.
Okay.
Is that
You said I have 60 more seconds left?
You have 30 seconds now.
Okay, well, would that be... Oh,
And the Bomb Squad also produced Ice Cube's album, America's Most Wanted. So
yeah, which is true. And also, you know, another thing you got to realize with Public Enemy, at that time, late 80s, early 90s, when they were kind of on, you know, reaching their peak, they were doing something that pretty much no other group was doing. You know, they were taking a lot of these issues, these inner city issues, these issues of, you know, police injustice, brutality, what have you, and they were making it known on the national stage. And while they were doing that, they were also pushing and encouraging us as a people to be better. So,
Okay.
All right, fair enough. Good debate.
drop the mic.
And over here, Team NWA, and go.
So those are all great points. I'm a huge Public Enemy fan. I'll start off by saying that. It's hard to say anything against Public Enemy, but just to give you a little background from me. I'm born and raised here in Los Angeles, so you know, NWA is very, very close to my heart. Before I was a television producer by trade, I produced radio. Before I produced radio, I was in the record business. I'm giving you my resume because before I was in the record business, my father was in the record business. So I kind of grew up in this area, specifically Los Angeles, in the music business, loving hip hop. Unfortunately, I grew up, and I'm old. I'm 2 years younger than Ice Cube, 6 years younger than Dre. I grew up loving East Coast hip hop.
Thank you for that.
I'll let you know who I am. But I grew up loving specifically East Coast hip hop. I grew up with Run DMC and all that stuff. And so in 1987, when Public Enemy's first record dropped, I was all over it. I was like hardcore East Coast repping guy until 1986, when NWA's first record came out, when the first EP came out, it kind of changed my life. It kind of changed everything I thought I knew about hip hop as we know. And there's two reasons why. Number one, I lived and grew up around South Central LA, 7th and Avalon very specifically. That kind of talk and that kind of what they were talking about in those records were unlike anything I've ever heard in hip hop before.
Such as what?
What? Such as.
Please don't interject unless
I was going to say, is that it?
that's our one. We'll take our
sorry.
one.
Strike one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, I'll even answer your question. I mean, just.
And we're at our halfway mark. For you.
Okay. Well, I'll get into time. Basically, I'll get back to that. But the things I haven't heard before, and we'll get into that in depth into content later. But I split time between the suburbs and both South Central Los Angeles. It was amazing to me to go and see the suburbs and see all white kids, all my white friends, freaking out over NWA the way I was, and then going back to inner city, going back to South Central and seeing people, our people bumping NWA in the streets. That juxtaposition I had not seen almost ever, even in running
60
days.
seconds left.
So I'll let you go ahead with that.
Basically, I grew up loving NWA just because they were real. I think the difference between Public Enemy and NWA is that NWA speaks truly from the heart. It might not come out as politically correct, and it might not be as like thought provoking as maybe Public Enemy, but it's what everybody feels, and it's the initial reaction that comes out when they talk about whatever they're talking about. And they're just real people. They're not claiming to be public activists in the community necessarily, more just speaking their mind.
Do I look like a motherfucking role model?
There you go. And they just want to say what they got to say. And that relates to people such as me, who sometimes I'm not politically correct, and I just feel like I just want to get it out and let people know how I feel, and you take it how it is. So I love them.
Yeah. And do the right thing with 89, brother. 89, 90s, 97, 88. I'm just saying, get the facts right.
You have 10 seconds?
All right, I'm done. That's it. No, that's it. That's all I got.
I appreciate you fact checking, and since we're on fact checks, I would like for you to explain the records.
We're not at fact checks yet.
Okay.
So now I'm going to leave this open for the judges. Did you have any cross-examine questions?
Courtney,
You're good. I'm pretty good. I would say.
Need any clarifying?
I don't think I need any clarifying on the opening arguments. I'm pretty good.
I'm pretty good right now too.
Cool.
And the song was written in 87, 88.
Man,
It
fair
may
enough.
not have been released
Fair
until.
enough.
Oh, all right. All right. Next, we're going to move to the facts. So, you guys will have 60 seconds each category to kind of give us a little bit about what you know or what you want to present as far as albums, tours, social media, and merch. So, we'll start with albums first, and we'll bounce back and forth. So, let's head with NWA.
Well, NWA only has two albums, really. If you really count Easy Does It, which is kind of a de facto NWA album because it came out months after, really simultaneously Straight Outta Compton. But here's the bottom line facts: 10 million records sold. They sold 10 million records. I mean, I love Public Enemy. Public Enemy, I think Nations of Millions sold 1.3. I think the first one, I can't remember the name of, sold less than that. Fear of a Black Planet sold 1.2. They didn't get anywhere near in their entire catalog. Didn't even get near 10 million.
30 seconds left.
You want to add to that?
I keep going.
Okay.
I mean, I was
I don't want to, but no, yes, no, we're doing 2 minutes. So when you talk about album sales, pure sales, NWA, completely obliterates Public Enemy for a lot of reasons, and without radio play. The East Coast, Public Enemy was played on the radio on the East Coast a lot, and they complained about not having radio play, but they were played on the radio play on the East Coast. We didn't have the infrastructure here. We had one station, K-Day. We had no one even playing remotely that kind of stuff, and the language didn't allow it. This is all streets.
And stop. All right. Public Enemy, go.
Well, first of all, I do want to say as well, I totally respect NWA, and I'm not here to bash them. I'm a fan, and I respect what they did. Mm-hmm. I respect the voice that they told for their culture. So I just want to make that very clear. Mm-hmm. And you're right. NWA may have sold 10 million copies, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of times when you justify or validate a group's greatness, album sales does not always have to do with that. I mean, we could go down the list and talk about artists who have sold albums that, we probably wouldn't include on our top 5 or top 10 list of all time. So with that being said, Public Enemy obviously did have a lot more albums that they had. And I understand NWA disbanded with Eazy-E's death and things of that sort, so that prevented them. But when it comes to albums, there's no denying that Public Enemy had
10 seconds.
Tons of longevity.
Here's the great
And
news: you get to follow their artistry, right? If you really want to look at Public Enemy, you get to see it's almost like a director with a body of work, and they have done over 40 tours, and they're the first successful band internationally.
All right.
In the rap
Speaking of
hip-hop.
tours, we're gonna let Public. Did you want to raise your hand and cross-examine?
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm gonna fact check a couple things. I'm gonna save it.
Save it for the judges. All right. We're gonna start with Public Enemy tours and go.
Public Enemy back in even 2000s, actually 1998 was their 40th world tour. So, the fact alone that they've already by that point done 40, and the fact that they're still doing tours to this day is amazing. And obviously, they're selling out arenas and things like that. And as I mentioned, they're the first kind of successful international band. I've never personally been, but the footage in the documentary is fantastic. And as I said, it's a visual, it's a presentation. It's almost if you go to Vegas and see, David Copperfield. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, we talked earlier about validating album sales as who has more fans and things of that sort. I honestly think tours and ticket sales really tells the tell on who has a bigger fan base. And the one thing about Public Enemy is, like Phil said, they were not just big here, but they were international. They would sell out and tour internationally. nationally, which showed that obviously that validates the strong fan base that they had, regardless of their album sales. And also, for their first album sales, either went gold or platinum anyway, which is pretty darn good.
Right. Oh,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to start by saying that, yes, maybe tours do get your fan base and you can see who's really following them. But I think one of the biggest things to note about NWA is they had a hard time doing their tours because of the police issues that they had, and their fan base was still huge. Even though they couldn't do as many tours all the time or go do as many shows, they still created, I mean, a mega. I mean, they created NWA just all over the place.
I mean, not only that, I just want to back really quickly fact check. I'm not so sure about that statement. They weren't really selling out arenas, especially in the same time NWA was. They weren't really doing arena tours until maybe much later in their career. I did see them at Dodger Stadium opening up for U2. That's not the same thing. NWA was actually doing arena tours. Their famous thing in Detroit was actually at Joe Louis Arena. They were actually doing arenas first time out. They had a rough time doing those arena tours. Yeah. That was an actual arena tour. And to your point about the album sales not mattering entirely. Time?
Nope.
No.
5 seconds.
Sorry. The album sales not mattering entirely. You're absolutely right about that. It's not about what NWA did. It's what they're still doing. That diaspora, that legacy still lives on all the way through Ice Cube and Dr. Dre.
All right, we're going to head into social media. Phil, or Public Enemy, go.
This is part of it is you have to take it, social media wise, as the band, or social media wise, how it still impacts today. And I think the messaging of Public Enemy, is very influential, and social media is a tool of their messaging. Now, it's tough to say because, if you kind of break it down, yes, you can look at Ice Cube, you can look at Dr. Dre, and they have over, millions of followers, but I don't think it's the same. It's not apples to apples.
They have millions of dollars, too. Go ahead.
30 seconds.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was really going to say the same thing. I obviously, we don't need to debate the fact that Ice Cube and Dr. Dre are extremely successful. But, with that being said, they're still, and when I say they're, Public Enemy are still staying true to what it is that they initially talked about, and they're able to accumulate a social media following off of that. And you will actually see people that will still hashtag Fight the Power today. People will still hashtag that. You talked about legacies living on. That's still one that
your Fight the Power hashtag is a good point. That's actually a good legacy of Public Enemy. But when you talk about social media now, I mean, it's really no competition. So Public Enemy had just released an album, actually, with I don't know if you guys even know about this. They just released an album. This should be all over social media. They're not. Juxtapose that against what's happening with the Straight Outta Compton campaign. This meme generator that they've done for the Straight Outta Compton movie is probably one of the most successful marketing campaigns ever. It crossed over not only out of movies, not only music, not only everything else. Politicians, everyone else is using this straight out of blank meme generator. It's probably one of the most successful social media campaigns I can remember, and this shows the longevity. This group was around 30 years ago. They dropped a meme generator today, and that shit is popping.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it. They came out in 1986. And, they have a Straight Outta Compton meme coming out now, and they're blowing up. Regardless of the movie.
Did we use our one already or no?
No, you haven't.
Can we use it?
Yep.
All right. I want to use it. I want to use it because, as much as the meme was a great ploy to get people to go see the movie, I think it degrades the meaning of what NWA actually is, because then people started making these various just funny jokes. And so what do you say to that in terms of the actual messaging of what NWA stood for when it's now being diluted?
You have 10 seconds to rebuttal. Go.
I think anyone who sat and made anything, a meme at all, thought for 1 second that this wasn't about Straight Outta Compton NWA. They all want to be a part of what's cool about NWA, what's cool about this movie. They want to jump on board with that.
Can I say something real quick?
Do we want that to be your second time?
How many do we get?
Two.
God dang it.
All right. You still have 2 more segments.
We'll hold.
All right. Next, we're going to move into merch. We're going to start with NWA.
That's a tough one. This is a tough one because I'll make your argument for you. Public Enemy has one of the all-time best logos of all time. I still rock it. I still love it. The young black East Coast guy, except the East Coast hat on, a young black man in a scope is great. But however, NWA still, look, I'll put it to you like this: what they've done with what they did for at the time the Raiders and the Raiders logo and the Raiders gear. So starter jackets and NBA and NFL apparel, the sales were flat. They with the proliferation of them wearing Raider gear and Kings gear, those sales spiked through the roof in LA and nationally and internationally mainly because of NWA and Easy and Ice Cube. So their legacy, their impact other apparel.
And I'll just add to that they brought that kind of West Coast culture of the khakis and the plaid shirts like out into the nation, and they made it big and they made it cool for something to do like outside of the West Coast, which blew up all over the place. Me being from the Midwest, I know that's still kind of a big thing today.
Yeah. Public Enemy.
It's funny you talk about how their influence on people wearing the Raiders jackets and the Raiders hats, because it seems like now, and it's actually been putting out there that Raiders clothing is symbolic with gang clothing. Yeah. And you hear how Raiders clothing is associated with violence and things of that sort. So I'm not so sure how that kind of merchandising and branding today is still a positive and impactful thing. Also, I was going to say in regards to that, we already know about the Public Enemy logo.
30 seconds.
It's very well. Go ahead, Phil.
I think Public Enemy goes beyond just album sales and T-shirts and hats. As we mentioned, it had a huge influence on Spike Lee, and I don't think Do the Right Thing and He Got Game. Less so on He Got Game, but Do the Right Thing is not the same movie without Public Enemy. And the fact that you can buy a movie, T-shirt, hat, it spans all merchandise.
Sure.
And time. All right, next we're going to move into the influence. Here you guys will each have 5 minutes to discuss influence in music, politics, and pop culture. And we're going to start with Public Enemy.
Shit.
And
tell me to go first.
Sure.
Okay, when it comes to influence, and I'm going to say this again, respectfully to NWA. I appreciate what they did. I am a fan of some of the stuff that they did. Actually, Express Yourself, to this day, is one that I still listen to. But when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, the messages that NWA were putting out there were polar opposite from the messages that Public Enemy was putting out there. NWA was putting out misogynistic lyrics, glorifying violence, gun shooting, drugs, and things of that sort. And just to show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to read a quick lyric real here from NWA's Boys in the Hood. It says, "Went to her house to get out the pad. Dumb hoe said something stupid that made me mad. She said something I couldn't believe, so I grabbed the stupid bitch by her nappy ass weave. She started talking shit, what do you know, reached back and slap a pimp, like a pimp, and I slapped the hoe." Okay, so I'm saying that right there to say this music was intoxicating as far as just infecting this young generation that followed them to feel that it's okay to disrespect women, to degrade women, to be misogynistic towards them, whereas Public Enemy was taking a whole nother look at that. And they were doing stuff in order to empower one another, to say positive things about each other. And I'm going to just say something real quick from a Public Enemy song. "Revolution means change, don't look at me strange, so I can't repeat what other rappers are saying." NWA reference. "If you don't stand for nothing, you fall for everything. Harder than you think, it's a beautiful thing." I can go on and on about their lyrics, but I think their lyrics were a lot more enriching, empowering, and at the end of the day, I just feel that NWA's lyrics did nothing more but escalate violence. They made violence cool. You talked about all these people that were listening to it, the white people and all these other people that were listening to the music. They thought that, yeah, it was cool. Violence is cool. Rolling down the street in my fofo or six four. Thank you. Guns and all this stuff. They made that seem cool to walk around with guns, to do drugs, and to disrespect women. And I just think that at the end of the day, the influence that Public Enemy had as far as not just for black and African Americans, but for people in general, was bringing a more socially aware and empowering focus, whereas NWA was very destructive and did nothing constructive for the community. Phil.
In terms of influence, right, they directly influenced the Beastie Boys. They opened up for them, and, the Beastie Boys are on record as saying they're a huge influence. Rage Against the Machine, that they've influenced them.
9 Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails, exactly. So you have all these offshoots that were influenced specifically by these guys. Now, I talked about the Bomb Squad, right? The Bomb Squad produced many albums. They created the beats, in particular Ice Cube's album, America's Most Wanted. Also, to kind of go off of lyrics, yes, NWA said something that's kind of never been said, but it also didn't give it a direction, whereas Public Enemy gives it a direction, and they also said things that most people didn't say. In Fight the Power, Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. you see straight up racist. That sucker was simple and plain.
Motherfuck him and John Wayne.
That's right, and you know, but it not only re-examines people as a black culture.
Positive to me.
Are you co-signing? Are you co-signing with us? Thank you.
I'm listening.
No, but also it not only stirs up what's happening in the black community, but also makes you think as a white person, male or female, of like, okay, my whole life I've been taught Elvis is a hero. Okay, and why? And yes, some of us have listened to his music. I personally haven't even really listened to Elvis that much to be like, okay, he's fantastic. And so when I heard that as a lyric, you examine that and you're like, wow, that's something. That the fact that it makes you question why it is that your pre-established culture is the way that it is. Another great one, crucifixion ain't no fiction. So-called chosen, frozen. Apology.
60 seconds.
Apology made to whoever pleases. Still, they got me like Jesus. About a brother while I'm in sync. Every brother ain't a brother because of color. I mean, the rhymes, the way it kind of it's really poetic. It's one thing to say what you want, but Chuck D and the way he rhymes is just so on point. And as he says, he doesn't freestyle, but he writes them like such, and that means something. And you know what? Rolling Stone ultimately. They were voted number 44 greatest bands ever. I think NWA made it to 63.
And I just want to say real quick, Rolling Stone, VH1 voted Fight the Power as the number one song in the greatest 100 songs of hip-hop. Number one, VH1, out of all the ones. And, I don't think that's coincidental. Time also listed that same song on its all-time 100 songs of all time, Fight the Power.
And so, I want to say Flavor Flav gets a bad rap, but he was the spoonful of sugar that fed these people kind of the message, right?
And time. NWA, go.
I just want to start off by saying that your point to they made violence cool. They didn't make violence cool. They made it reality. They opened it up to the rest of the nation that a lot of other people in those cultures didn't see that. I think their influence, the biggest influence, is they made the way for gangster rap. Gangster rap is what it is today because of NWA, and there wouldn't have been that genre on your iTunes right now if it wasn't for NWA. They created so many platinum artists at this point in time that I mean coming out, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and everybody that they created, 50 Cent, Eminem. I mean, they expanded the horizon of hip hop and rap.
Look, if you're trying to make the argument that Public Enemy is positive, NWA is negative, that's a straw. I mean, that's a very, very sort of, for me, a very sort of weak argument. They're not apples and apples. I will say, you quoted some lyrics there. I understand that. I want to just bring up a couple things. First of all, Yo Brum Rush's Show came out in 1987, the same year Straight Outta Compton came out. Yo Brum Rush's Show was not exactly a positive pro-black album. It was just a hip-hop album. When dudes talking about riding around in 98 Oldsmobile, talking about bum rushing the show, talking about bring the noise. So Public Enemy was just not super conscious. That level of conscious came in a Take the Nation's Millions to Hold Us Back in 1988. And even with that, you have things like Security First World Professor Griff. Professor Griff has gotten a lot of trouble for his anti-Semitic remarks. He kept making anti-Semitic remarks, kept talking about the wickedness very specifically, and I'll quote your man, Professor Griff, specifically the wickedness of Jews, that they're responsible for the wickedness all around the globe. And then we know about Flavor Flav and his treatment towards women and his drug abuse and other things. So I don't think we want to go there. I am using some of my time to rebut that. I'm using my time. I'm cool with that. But because I'm okay with using our time to do that, because the legacy of NWA is intact. I mean, I can just say this. I said they started out from nowhere, from West Coast, not the birthplace of hip hop, put the West Coast on the map for hip hop, then went ahead from there to sell 10 million records, another 2.1 million records with Eazy-E, and then again the diaspora, all the things that came from NWA. Ice Cube sold, and all the records that Ice Cube sold, the movies, the influence that he had, Dr. Dre, all the things, the influence that he had. I don't go over the millions and millions of records that Dr. Dre sold.
Stop.
Yes.
You want a rebuttal?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, Ice Cube said some very anti-Semitic remarks as well, and that diss track that he had towards Eazy-E and the rest of NWA. Bad to the point where I remember they actually publicized it and made it a huge thing. Also, you keep talking about the success of them. Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, all these.
All your crew was white people telling you what to do.
Yeah, and no one's denying that. I admit, Snoop, I had Doggy Style, I had The Chronic, I had all those albums. I'm not. Nobody is denying the fact that they were not successful. NWA sold 10 million. Nobody is denying that.
Not success. We're talking about influence.
We're talking about legacy.
And nobody is denying that. But like I said before, I don't think you can necessarily look at yes, they were the foundation of the gangster rap, or they made the gangster rap movement that much more prevalent. I admit that. But when you look at as far as just more impactful, more influence, Public Enemy, they just weren't influencing artists, okay? They were influencing religious leaders. They were influencing world leaders. In 1987, when Arizona did not want to acknowledge Martin Luther King's holiday, guess what? They made a song about it. Not only made a song about it, but they went down there to protest as well. So for them, they transcend more than music. They were a complete movement, and that's what I keep trying. They've even been referred to as the second Black Panther movement and all these other things, where, as what you guys are saying about, I get you, they were successfully music wise, and I will not take that back. I was a fan, like I said, but if you're just talking about which group had more influence, Public Enemy by far transcended music.
And now you guys get 3 minutes and 30 seconds, 60 seconds added for that rebuttal to continue.
Okay, look, we're talking about, I'm talking about cultural influence. I see what you're saying. By the time you get to Arizona, all that stuff was good. But we're talking about the religious leaders. But Public Enemy aligned himself with the Nation of Islam, and specifically Louis Farrakhan, words to Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm not going to get into the politics of what that is, what that means, but they're not. There's a lot of controversy back there. Okay, their intentions were good. NWA, I'm talking about purely cultural influence and musical influence right now. The influence that they had culturally on the entire world, on the entire United States, coming from one little small city in Compton, is immeasurable. I mean, I know the Public Enemy came from Long Island. That's great. Also small. It reached out. The people, this Mount Rushmore of artists that were in NWA, including Eazy-E, the Lennon McCartney of hip hop, which Dr. Dre and Ice Cube are still making records today. Dre's 50, Ice Cube is 46. Undeniable legacy. Dre is the first hip hop billionaire. Like, it all comes from him. And you talk about Eminem, you talk about a whole generation of kids. This is all influence I'm talking about. I'm not talking about record sales. I'm talking about pure cultural influence. Now, you can debate what's more important, sort of like taking some social stands on some issues versus cultural influence. And that's a wonderful debate, but I don't think that's what we're talking about here. I think we're talking about the influence of their music in pop culture, and music, and then say political too. So I'll give you that. So for me, you can't talk about what the good things they did versus the bad things that NWA did when your resume is full of bad things as well. But you cannot even hold a candle when we talk about influence, record sales, and what these people have done for the music game.
I think I would say that if we're talking about legacy, like, their legacies created other legacies. Like, they started, like, the things they did. I'll just put in, because I was just thinking about what you said. They created. Subconsciously created Eminem. The show that we're on now, Stan Wars. I mean, they created Eminem, created a whole genre of white kids to, like, really fill into hip hop.
Ripples of culture.
And just ripples on. And, like, you got Snoop Dogg going away. I mean,
Tupac.
You got Tupac going away. You got 50 Cent going one way. They all created another legacy within that.
And
so they're
the
way
DLC
bigger.
and Easy and Miss Chalet and
60 seconds.
And on and on and on. I mean, but Public Enemy. I think I bought the Flavor Flav album. It was cool. I bought that album, but it wasn't.
Nobody's talking about Flavor Flav album.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
you were watching the show though.
I watched Flavor Love. Love, but it wasn't Beats Radio.
And it wasn't
I don't got Flavor Flav headphones on though.
Is that your second?
Yeah.
That's you're done. If you guys want the last 30 seconds to rebuttal, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as far as influence, you guys keep talking about the tree branch of death roll, and everyone that came after that, Eminem. You gotta understand, as far as being a socially conscious rapper, I would say Public Enemy did kind of, because you have other rappers that even acknowledge Public Enemy as their influences. EPMD, Eric B. and Rakim, Cannabis. All of them are extremely conscious rappers, and they were all influenced by Mos Def, LL Cool J. The list goes on and on. The list goes on and on. So when you talk about overall cultural impact or influence, I mean, we could sit here and just name artists.
Okay. Judges, would you guys like to ask any questions before we head into the closing argument? How you guys feeling? Because we have the
I feel like
facts.
Courtney has a question.
I don't have a question yet. I actually want to hear some closing arguments before I.
All right, so we're going to ask you guys for your closing arguments, and then we will ask you guys our final questions, tally up the numbers, and we'll see who the winner of this debate is. So, for the closing argument, we're going to start with NWA.
Okay.
And you have 5 minutes. I'll give you guys halfway mark, and go.
Okay, so I just want to start, but my closing argument is basically that NWA, although versus Public Enemy, had just as many issues, had many problems, but the difference between Public Enemy and NWA is that NWA started a culture that just kept expanding. They started from the same route that Public Enemy did, but the difference is their tree kept growing, whereas Public Enemy kind of tapered off, their leaves fell down. You have still people holding on, but at the end of the day, NWA is still moving forward in their, I guess, the generations after that followed them, and they're still making music. And I would almost say that most of the artists today attribute a lot of their being so open about what real life is to how NWA came out, and they felt more comfortable about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just the closing arguments. So this is running down the line. Both the groups started roughly around 1986, 87. Debut albums: Yo Bum Rush Show versus NWA and a Posse. I'll give that to Yo Bum Rush Show. Straight Outta Compton versus It Takes a Nation Millions. I gotta give it to Straight Outta Compton, and Easy Does It for the pure influence. We already talked about record sales, Obliterated. We already talked about sort of like we already talked about the cultural legacy that lives on from these people. What Ice Cube was going on to do, from and everything from Friday, from writing movies, how much Friday influenced our culture from a visual standpoint, writing, music, everything else. What Dre did influence his culture. What Eazy-E did influence his culture. I talked about what they were saying. We talked about social commentary. We forgot to mention the most important social commentary that came out of this whole thing was what happened during the whole "Fuck the Police" thing. Fuck the Police. This is a time in 1987 where the crash unit in 1987 where LAPD was out of control. Crash unit was running rampant, stopping people like me and put us on, taking us out, put us on hoods of cars. Batarams were running through houses. That was real. That was in the movie. This was out of control. We saw this come to a head with the Rodney King riots. Like NWA standing up saying "fuck the police" not only in Compton but nationwide started and that went along with the Rodney King riots started what the reform of the LAPD we see now. The Daryl Gates era is now gone. We now have at least more diverse LAPD. But talking about bringing that to light, something that my father dealt with in the 60s in Los Angeles, is something that I dealt with in the 80s in Los Angeles, and finally of these 4 or 5 young men who were courageous enough to talk about it and bring it to light, to internationalize, so much so that the FBI themselves were afraid of what these guys were doing. Now you talk about influence, you talk about a megaphone from Compton. The federal government was calling Eazy-E to find out what he's doing. Nobody called Flavor Flav. I mean, I know. So I'm just saying. This cannot go. We talked about the merchandise. We talked about the social media aspect.
Halfway.
The tours. I will say this again. This is the first. One of the first, aside from what happened with the Fresh Fashion in the 80s, one of the first tours that was an arena tour. These are dudes from Compton running around in arenas, selling arenas out. Like Public Enemy was not doing that. So we have that. And then last but not least, something we did not mention, another cultural influence, whether you like it or not, Straight Outta Compton was the first record to have the parental advisory sticker on it. Like, so they came up in that whole PMRC debate. That sticker was on their record. The first person ever had that on the record, which meant a lot in terms of being able to label things, but also it meant crazy record sales. And every other rap group and rock group too wanted that sticker to be able to have those kind of sales. And last but not least, we're talking about all this was done in an era where record sales were 100%. Again, I mentioned my father was in the record business for a reason, as was I. Record sales were 100% almost dependent in those days on spins, on record spins, on being on the radio. These people were not on the radio. NWA was not on the radio at all. They couldn't be on the radio because of the content of their music, as we talked about. But this is all word of
60
mouth.
seconds.
Word of mouth that spanned from Compton to all the way out to the suburbs where I was at, all the way up to Fresno, to San Francisco, to Arizona, all the way to New York City, and all the way around the world. And that influence has spread all the way down to we're sitting there watching Beats music, watching a feature film that's #1 in the country, listening to our shit on Apple Beats Dr. Dre headphones. He's a billionaire.
30 seconds.
Just he just hits it all. Just to add, when I think about the movement and I think about the progression of the movement, it takes the noise to start the conversation. And I think the difference between Public Enemy and NWA is that you need that noise. And Public Enemy didn't bring the noise. NWA brought the noise. Public Enemy might have brought the conversation afterwards, but they would have never got there unless NWA started the bringing the noise.
That's right. I like that.
And time. Okay. Public Enemy, your closing
You
statement.
want to go first?
I'll start. I think.
And go.
When you guys when you guys mentioned kind of the influence, right? You guys mentioned a lot of gangster rap, hip hop type. In terms of Public Enemy's influence, right? It spans, as we said, LL Cool J, Peter Gabriel of all people, right? Paula Abdul, Vanessa Williams. Ice Cube, I keep going back to him. These, Rage Against the Machine. These are very different people or bands that Public Enemy has managed to influence. So it's not just one type of genre.
Yeah.
Also, what I like about Public Enemy, it stands for. It's more than just a band. It's an idea, right? The S1Ws, Security of the First World, represents that black man can just be as intelligent as he is strong. It stands for the fact that we're not third world people, we're first world people, we're the original people. And that means something. And again, it goes beyond just saying, here's the reality of what we see every day. No, it's okay, it's time to, everyone as an individual, we have to rise above that and act upon it. Furthermore, in terms of all these accolades, whether Ice Cube or Dre, I think they're their own. Yes, NWA kind of got them started, but eventually they had that greatness in them, and to fully attribute that to NWA, I think is unfair of what they had to begin with within themselves. They're in the Music Hall of Fame. I understand that that NWA is there too, but still to this day, Public Enemy has stood as a group. I think it's very unfortunate that NWA as a group split apart. They couldn't. Yes, I understand the contract negotiations and things like that, but the fact that they couldn't work it out within themselves is a very. And yes, they were young and all that, but it's a very negative portrayal of. Again, as a band, what they could have really gone on to. I think that's the biggest tragedy. They could have done so much more, and they didn't. And it's all circumstantial, but it's all part of the what happened.
First of all, you guys keep talking about Dre and Cube, how successful they are, billionaire, Beats, all this other stuff. Great, admirable. Love to see black men that are doing incredible things, impactful things.
McCartney of hip-hop.
However, you got to realize this: Dre and Cube both have something in common. They became prominent, prolific, and productive after they left NWA. None of that had anything to do with NWA. That was just where they started off. Matter of fact, Cube became entirely successful after he left NWA. So while NWA may have been the quote-unquote foundation for all of this, they became extreme.
Rebuttal?
I gotta jump in there. That's just false. NWA was hugely successful. Again, one album, 10 million records, and then Eazy-E sold 2.9, whatever that was, million albums, and then they went off to sell millions and millions and hundreds of millions more. And so that's just a false statement. Also, something you said that I really forgot to mention, which is truly, truly important. Public Enemy is fantastic, and Chuck D's writing is amazing, but Public Enemy exists on the shoulders of Hank Shockley and the Bomb Squad. The Bomb Squad is one of the most prolific production teams around. Hank Shockley is one of the most prolific, wonderful hip-hop producers around. He is responsible for all that sound. But guess who's responsible for the sound of NWA? Dr. Dre. Guess who's responsible for every single lyric written in every single NWA thing? Ice Cube. Ice Cube, Dr. Dre. They made that music. Flavor Flav didn't make that music. Chuck D can't make that music. Chuck D can't produce nothing. Chuck D, but Hank Shocklee can. And I'll give Hank Shocklee his props. Even Ice Cube saw how great Hank Shocklee was because he went to go work with him right after he left NWA, which is great because he's a great producer. He was such a great producer, he helped create one of the greatest bands of all time, Public Enemy. But guess what? That was all we did. NWA was in-house.
All right, and we're going to add 60 seconds on that, so you have 3 minutes left.
Okay, so I thank you for bringing that up. I do respectfully disagree, but I do appreciate that. So, but the more of the story I was trying to say is that obviously NWA was their foundation. That was their launching pad. However, they became successful after they left. Ice Cube was more successful as a solo artist than he was with NWA. Dr. Dre was more successful as a solo artist than he was with NWA. I think Eazy-E was maybe the only one you can argue that had extreme success within the group as well. Another thing I was going to say, you guys keep talking about Dre, Eminem, and all that other stuff. That sprouted from Death Row. And Death Row had nothing to do with Ruthless Records and NWA. Those are two totally different things. So for you guys to keep claiming all of these other artists, that was Death Row Records. That was not Ruthless Records, which NWA was on. And by the way, the person who founded Death Row, Suge Knight, what is he doing right now? He definitely didn't see the movie. So anyways, moving on to the next point. Moving on to my next point.
You guys still have one more.
Yeah.
Moving on to my next point. With the F the police, you guys were over there heralding that, saying it was great. They were saying something. They were giving people a voice. Impoverished African Americans that were constantly profiled by police. They were giving them a voice. I appreciate that. That's beautiful. However, what they were doing, honestly, and just to talk about the relevance of that today, they were perpetuating racial tensions between blacks and police officers. And to continuously use that song and shout that song out today, I feel is doing nothing to help our justice, especially if we're trying to, to conceal or close off, this tension that we have between police officers and, and African American males. So if anything, I think praising that song is just doing more to cause more tension in America, and unfortunately will probably lead to more unjust killings. Also, another thing that I was going to say is you guys kept talking about commercial successful, selling albums, Snoop, all these people selling albums. You got to realize, if you want to look at album sales, the reason why Public Enemy was not maybe selling 50 million albums is because of the music that they were making. As we both know, when it comes to commercially successful hip hop or rap, they play the crap on the radio that people want to hear. Whenever you try to say something that is socially captivating or invigorating or something that actually provokes thought, that doesn't get radio play. So of course Public Enemy is not going to sell as many albums because commercially they were not as friendly as their music because they were actually saying something with substance and with depth. They were not just talking about pulling women's hair, slapping them, and all this other stuff that I talked about prior to that. The other thing that that I basically want to talk about was that Public Enemy. You talked about how they had this sign on there, the Parental Advisory Explicit Lyrics. They were the innovators, or the first to have that. Well, you got to realize when it comes to innovating, Public Enemy was actually the first group to release an MP3 only album. They released that ahead of its time when people didn't even know what MP3s were. So they were ahead of the curve and released. They were the only group to that date that released it. Obviously, since then we've had a lot of that, but they were the first ones to do that, which totally shows their overall influence and innovation on that. And ultimately, like I said, I feel that they just had a much more impactful and productive and constructive impact to everyone.
All right, and now we're gonna head it over to the judges.
Boom.
Good job, guys. Everybody all
Great job, guys.
So before we tally up, ladies, any questions? Courtney, start with you.
You can start with me. Okay, so fans of NWA, guys, great job.
Thank you.
But in terms of, we talked about the influence of them culturally on the culture as a whole. But at the time that they were doing what they were doing, there was a lot of talk of the idea that yes, they're bringing the issues of like police brutality and things like that to audiences that may know absolutely nothing about what's going on. But there were also arguments at the same time that in that sort of informative space that they were also in a space where they have actually been accused of being part of, by the building up of gangster rap, being the sort of contributing to the disintegration of the black community in a certain way in terms of dealing with misogyny and the aggressive lyrics towards women that only got perpetuated through rap for the next till now, basically. So as fans of NWA and knowing that maybe to a certain degree, how do you speak to someone in regards to that and that portion of their cultural influence of being a group?
And you have 30 seconds.
I just look at it through the cultural lens of music and music creation. I think of music across the board, rock and roll and across everything else. I mean, there's no more misogynistic group than Led Zeppelin around. I mean, the way they treated women was deplorable. NWA, all they were was a megaphone. They were reporters. They were street reporters reporting what they see and on a megaphone with a megaphone to the world. Now, initially, it was just for the skate rink. It was just for the corner. It was just for people in the house. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. They didn't change those lyrics. Ice Cube wrote that stuff when he was 16. I mean, this is just them reporting what they see and how they felt.
And
it did blow up.
Do you have anything else?
You can go.
No?
Tiana.
Tiana doesn't have any
good.
questions. I have a question, and both of you guys can speak on this. Kevin, you brought up the commercial radio, saying that Public Enemy, wasn't putting out the same type of music that NWA was, so it wasn't popular, and that's why the radio didn't play it. I'd like you guys to kind of build off of that, and each one of you guys can have 30 seconds. Would you say that maybe NWA found a way to make that kind of a statement commercial? And go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think there's no denying that they were able to, find commercial success with the kind of expletives and provocative lyrics that they had. And, you got to realize, as far as what radios play, if it's something that is destructive to our people, hell, they'll put it on, but the moment we get on there and start preaching or coming with a message or substance, now, and I'm not just saying people like, the FAA or the people that, even our people, we don't like, black people in general,
And stop, 30 seconds
sorry.
for NWA, go.
The music was terrible. Public Enemy had 2 good records. The rest of the music was terrible. That MP3 joint, awful. I'm glad they released it. It was terrible. The reason why the reason why that our shit is selling 10 million records, not because we're cussing, not because we're talking about women, is because the music is classic. It's timeless. It's fantastic.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all music, and they're putting out something that people want to hear and people relate to, and that's why it became commercial. That's why it blew up, because people familiarize themselves with the music.
Exactly.
I just want to say something
15 seconds. Go.
Okay, I just want to say something real quick. You kind of contradicted yourself because you said earlier when they had that parental advisor explicit lyrics thing on there, that's what helped them sell records. That was ground. It helped them sell records. But you're saying that now their provocative lyrics had nothing to do with them selling records.
Right, man, both things are not mutually exclusive. Both things are
15
true.
seconds, go.
Both things are true. That helped them sell those records. The music was always good. The music was always timeless. I know every lyric of Straight Outta Compton. I was rapping it the other day. I'm 44. It's timeless music. The music is still good. PE, one good album, two good albums.
All right, guys, gentlemen, very good job. That was very entertaining. I'm proud to know that all of you guys are super fans of the groups, and also keeping it classy and giving each other well balanced. Now, so the judging is based off of each segment gets a different set of points. The basics, why are you a fan, 10 points. The facts, 20 points. Influence, 30. Closing argument, 40. We'll be able to break the points up. What we're judging, though, is level of preparation, quality of case arguments, quality of rebuttals, and quality of cross-examination. So, ladies, we're going to add our points up.
Okay.
Can we get some time right now?
Meanwhile, we're going to start rapping our favorite song here.
So it's time to leave you with a preview, so you too can review what we do.
Okay. Was that a rap? Phil.
I'm not a rapper. I'm a reader of raps. 20 years in this business.
Yes.
How you sell soul, gee whiz. People bear witness. Thank you for letting us be ourselves.
Yes.
Thank you for letting.
So don't mind if I repeat myself. These simple lines be good for your health.
Yes.
You're getting up there, Joe. You need some good health.
I'm getting up there. I ain't gonna lie. I do need some good help. I ain't gonna lie.
Told y'all I couldn't do math.
Live calculations.
I'm
ready.
I don't. To keep them crime rhymes on the shelf. Live life, love like you just don't care. 5,000 liters, never scared. Bring the noise
this
in
one?
the moment. They fear.
What song is this?
What we need is awareness. We can't get careless.
You say, what is this?
You say, what is this? My beloved, let's get down to business.
Did you know the lyrics?
Self-defense.
Of course I do. Bum Rush the Show. Go for what you know. Let everybody see. Don't fight the powers that be. What else? Give me this. Feed me something else.
Yeah, he's good, man.
Yeah.
I just want to say something while Jesse's doing the final tally right now. First of all, great job to all you guys up there because I actually
claps.
learned so much listening to you guys talk about both of these groups. Because I'm so young, I didn't know that.
Here we go.
No, but just great job to both sides. And this decision was so hard because you guys all came so prepared and you knew your facts, and it was just the passion that happened at that table just now made me want to go out and just buy everyone's albums and lock
All
myself
the
in a
albums and
room for
listen
like
to it.
6 days and just become obsessed with everything that you guys were
T,
talking
you
about.
as a
So.
woman, I love this because universally we will stand and divided we will fail.
I already submitted
hoes and shit.
I
The
already
verdict
submitted my points. I have no more say.
They have no say. I've tallied the points up, and with 168 points to 135, the winner of is NWA versus Public Enemy. Who is better? Congratulations to NWA. 168 points.
That's a very close.
We broke 100.
Hey, good stuff, man. Great stuff.
It's all
Great
positive.
stuff.
Both great historical rap groups who have influenced many different cultures, people for many years. Make sure you guys check out Straight Outta Compton at your theater near you. And we would love to thank you
Nice
guys for
plug.
joining us at BHL Stan Wars here at The Beat today. Make sure you stay for more. We will have tons more coming up. And thank you guys for taking this so seriously and doing your homework. Till
you.
next time, peace.
Bye, Felicia.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in. The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.